Brandon, been looking forward to this talk, buddy. Thanks for
Nice, me
being with
too.
us.
Thank you.
And there we go. I'm waiting for the echo. And that's when we know we're live, but looking good. Hey everybody, stoked to have B-Dub here. I call him B-Dub. We had a good time hanging at Confluence in Texas a few months back. That was great that you were able to come, Brandon. That was a good time. Okay. Yep, we're good. I'm gonna hit record and start this up. Yes, pickle strong. We are indeed today. You and your marketing. You're a marketing wizard, bro.
Thank you.
Okay, here we go. Okay, give me 2 seconds here. Switch the view. And here we go. And boom, we're back for another episode of Alfacast. I'm Mike Winner, and I'm here as always with the unalienable Dr. Bear Paul Lando, coming to you live and direct from the great state of Jefferson, where freedom reigns supreme. California is where we're at, on the very tip top corner there, as far away from Brandon's place as we can be. You know, I'm originally from there, from Los Angeles. So yes, we're both Californians here. We're all Californians here today. And we'll go into the Republic a bit maybe today and what that means. But yeah, no, it's great.
We're domiciled in California. We are not residents.
Bingo. We'll touch on that a bit today as well, I'm sure. Excited to get back into some law talk today. One of the hottest topics in the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 years of doing this, of doing Alfacast, and Brandon really brings it. So I'm excited to have him on today. Just a quick reminder, we are 1 week out from Music and Sky. So definitely grab your tickets if you haven't yet. We have weekend adventure tickets, and we will be dropping single night passes as well. Bear Lando and I will be on stage Saturday at 5 p.m. To have a wonderful discussion around bioterrain medicine and you know everything we do at Alfa Vedic, and then open it up to an awesome Q&A. I'm really looking forward to that, Bear. I know a lot of people can't wait to meet you in person. So go to musicandsky.com.
I'll be on the first stage out of town.
Brandon will be looking to make it next year. He will be coming out on main stage in a pickle costume riding a rice rocket. So that should be a lot of fun. Yeah, he can't make it this year. He's been, as he will be informing us today, very busy boy. And but yeah, can't wait to have him come out to Music and Sky. Brandon, it's right up your alley, man.
Oh, I'd love to. I had a blast at Confluence.
Yeah. I mean, what's so fun about these events is being able to come and meet together in person and really have like really awesome discussions right around the table while eating and stuff. And really a lot of magic happens and a lot of new ideas are created and put it out there into the field, and it has an effect. So it's important. It's important for us to gather. This digital stuff's cool, but we need to keep meeting in person for sure. Today I'm excited to jump into one of my favorite topics, which is on the law side, but on the money side as well, and really understanding how the magic money system works. Bear, before I go into the bio and introduction for Brandon, do you have any things to say to our community before we jump into this?
No, let's jump right into it.
Okay, beautiful. Well, I titled this "Be Your Own Bank" today, Brandon, because I think that's going to cover a lot of things. And I know you've been very busy. You've been on a lot of huge podcasts of late with Luke Story and our homie Alec. I'm wearing actually Alec's shirt today, Love Over Fear,
Nice.
in honor of him. He's doing some amazing things around virology right now that are coming out, Bear, which I can talk to you after the show. Might be good to have Alec back on with what he's doing with Stefan Lanka's work. And well, he's helping just get it out there with another gentleman who's been doing this. But anyways, that being said, Brandon, you've been on Crow 777. like big podcast. So in our community is pretty wise to a lot of the things around citizenship and person versus human, versus living man woman, the lawfare and all that stuff. So Bear and I were thinking it would be really fun to tap more into the money side of things, and what you're doing, and in terms of educating people around what the dollar actually is and where we can go from here in terms of how we can use this to empower ourselves and actually turn the system around, if that sounds good, because there's just so many things we can get into, and I'd love to kind of stay zoned in on that. So yeah, but anyway, so that's what we titled it today, and I'm sure the conversation will take a million tangents. But yeah, the dollar has passed its intended shelf life, and the larger swath of U.S. citizens will soon appreciate the admonitions of our country's founders against the establishment of a national bank. As the horrors of taxation, inflation, and government criminality are reaching peak realization, a once proud country has succumbed to a state of bewildered dependency. Quote, let us control the money of a country and we care not who makes its laws. Who said that quote, Bear?
That was old Nathan Rothschild, I believe.
Indeed.
When I was writing that, I looked up quotes to try to get it right, and there's variations of that. And then, of course, the normie Wikipedia thing says, well, that may be attributed to him, may not. But yeah, he said it. I got that straight from G. Edward Griffin when I met up with him years ago. And so he's a good researcher. So I kind of default on what he says.
So what do we do? On this episode, Brandon Joe Williams and the Alfacast crew will discuss possible scenarios and solutions for the perfect financial storm that is now upon us. As the founder of the Amnesty Coalition, Brandon will share his considerable research and firsthand experience in unveiling the reality of quote-unquote citizenship and the inherent perils associated with this status, and also the benefits that come with it. Brandon will take us deep into the waters of commerce to reveal how we can navigate freely while enjoying immunity from the liabilities imposed by the predator class on the unwary. If you're interested in being legally recognized as a sovereign within your own foreign government pursuant to 18 U.S.C. 11 and enjoy full diplomatic immunity as a non-commercial ambassador, you'll definitely want to join us today. There's so much we can get into, but yeah, Bear Lando, take it away, sir.
Brandon, thanks for being with us, buddy. Looking forward to this talk greatly. Listen to some of your other interviews, highly informative and entertaining as well. So this is going to be fun. Since the subject is banks, I suppose today it might be of interest to you that I actually own and manage two banks, and they're located on either side of the river that runs through my farm here, and they control the current within those banks. So to me, that's authentic currency. What say you about this other artificial version, I guess, that we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, I got a lot to say. So it's very simple to me. I've been looking at it all day long, every day for going on a year and a half or whatnot, and it's just a way that the system is a very, very complicated system from the outside, but when you start to peel back the layers, you realize that it's actually very, very simple, and there's just a few key points, and there's a whole lot of terms that all mean the same thing. And so just digging through all the different terms and kind of simplifying everything down to a very, very simple, and just trying to simplify everything down and then get it as simple as possible. And then what's left is we only have a few terms. And then now all we have to do is just focus on those terms, define them and really understand them. And then now, boom, we've kind of, that's my formula for handling banking and finances, right? So the way that I look at it is, the banks have developed a system to where they are through the power of collateralization, they are essentially grabbing and gobbling up the interest of basically every physical object in the world. That's basically their MO, right? And the way that they do it is when you have an original promissory note, when you sign a promissory note to get any loan for any reason, including a credit card transaction, that the actual original loan documentation, the actual promissory note, is a security when you sign it. And what they're doing is they're going to what's called the Federal Reserve discount window, and they're writing what's called an application for notes, and they're exchanging the maturity value of that promissory note for Federal Reserve notes, and that's how they, quote, fund their, quote, loan. So you actually fund your own loan. You fund your own slavery, essentially. And the simplicity of it is it just comes down to the way you sign. If you sign in a different way, then the loan automatically discharges off of itself and zeroes out. And actually, you can actually get paid for getting loans. And the process behind how that works all has to do with actual mainline banking technology and reading UCC Article 3, which is all about this information, and understanding that the term that's used to describe signing a security is called, the word is called endorsements. And people have seen that word spelled with an E on the back of their checks throughout their life. But there's actually an older and more purist version of the way to spell that word, and you actually spell it with an I, I-N-D-O-R-S-E-M-E-N-T. And there's several different types of endorsement. There's a blank endorsement, a special endorsement, a qualified endorsement, restrictive endorsement, conditional endorsement, and they all work in different ways, and they all mean different things, and they all kind of boil down to however you sign is the way that that instrument is going to be exchanged or moved. And you actually control how that instrument will be controlled or moved based off of the way that you sign or endorse the instrument. And that's like the basic ground level 101 on what I do and how I do it.
So even backing up before we get into endorsements, is there some significance to the difference, the legal definitions of signature, which can be an endorsement or an endorsement, versus autograph? Autograph legally, if I recall, it's something like writing your name by your own hand, whereas the signature is simply designating a name to validate a legal document, which can be done electronically or by somebody in your stead or something. So, yeah, back in my early studies, we kind of made a little bit of a distinction about those two things. And as far as the, let me ask you this, if I've got it right. My understanding is that when we endorse any particular loan, alleged loan, then we are creating a benefit for that institution. And then that in turn routes through the clearinghouse, Federal Reserve, goes through the Securities Exchange, then goes on the left-hand side of the ledger, which is why when we go through the mortgage papers, we're signing on the right-hand side first, then all of a sudden we're on the left-hand side because now we're in the debit side. So we're actually taking on the liability of the debit, or the liability that is rightfully the bank, so that they can balance their books without having to be on the hoof themselves. So can you unpack that a little bit more, or tell me where I'm wrong with that?
I don't know a lot of that. What basically the way that I have done the research and reading UCC3 at 500 times and trying to figure it all out, we actually went out and started getting a lot of documents. A lot of my followers, I had them go out and start getting a lot of documentation. We started finding all sorts of endorsements on a lot of the documentation. Not all of them, but some of them. I was looking at as many as I can get my hands on, and I started spotting these endorsements, and I started posting them on my website. The way that it works is this: if you so the definition of the term endorsement from UCC 8-102 subsection 11, it says endorsement means a signature that alone or accompanied by other words is made on a security certificate or on a separate document for the purpose of assigning transferring or redeeming the security or granting a power to assign, transfer, or redeem it. So when you just sign with your name, that's called a blank endorsement. The definition of the term blank endorsement means an endorsement which does not state a payee. And I could go even farther and say it'd be an endorsement that doesn't have any conditions at all whatsoever. So what happens is when you sign any instrument just using your name or using squiggles that represent your name, what's happening is you are basically making that instrument payable to the bearer. And what that means in banking terms is that means that anyone who holds that instrument can claim that instrument, and then they can so the term you guys have probably heard before, it's called negotiable instruments. And the term instrument just means like a deed or a contract. The term negotiable means able to be transferred or what we call negotiated. When we talk about endorsements and we talk about the different ways in which you can endorse an instrument, we are talking about the negotiation of the instrument. Negotiation means, like it said in the definition, the assigning, the transferring, or the redeeming of the instrument. So a signature, quote unquote, which is really an endorsement, is actually like a micro contract. And the way in which you sign or endorse that contract determines what the bank can and cannot do with the instrument. When you sign with a blank endorsement and you do not state the payee on the instrument, what happens is you are releasing that valuable, extremely valuable instrument payable to the bearer, and you have expressed no interest, desire, or claim over the value of that instrument. That is the issue. Now, what they do is they put a special endorsement on the instrument, right? And I can do a screen share and I can show you some if you'd like to see some.
Sure.
Let me see if I can share my screen. I just hit it.
You should be able to.
So if we go to my state national resources page and we scroll down just a touch, these are the endorsements that we were finding on the various documentation that I was looking at and we were looking at. So what I did was I started to break down these endorsements, and this is kind of like where a lot of my learning went, right? We have the terminology without recourse. So without recourse is actually called a qualified endorsement. Without recourse means that you no longer have any liability or financial liability at all, and you actually cannot be sued. So what's happening is that it's once I give this to you, and once it's so the way that transfer works, there's terminology for that as well. There's a lot of terminology, but there's really only two words that really mean anything that are important at all. You have the word tender. So tender means an unconditional offer. So if I reach out my hand and I unconditionally offer you this $20 promissory note called a Federal Reserve note, that's called a tender. And then the definition of the word accepted means delivered. So if it gets delivered, then by law, it's been accepted by the transferee. It's called the transferee. Okay. There's other terminology, but we don't need to get into all that. It's not as important. What's important is words like tender, words like acceptance, which means delivery. So without recourse, basically in normal English terms, means once I tender this to you and once you accept it by delivery, you can't come after me at all for any non-performance, non-payment, or for any litigation. It's an insurance policy. And that's why the banks are writing this terminology on all of the endorsements. Every single one will always have the qualified endorsement of without recourse. Okay. Now, pay to the order of, and then the payee, that terminology is the same terminology you see on a check. Check says pay to the order of, and then you write who the check is payable to. The word that describes that is called the payee. Okay. When you state the payee in the endorsement, that's called a special endorsement. So what we're looking at here is actually a combination of both a qualified as well as a special endorsement. And then you have by, BY, colon, line, and then you have the name of the individual who has issued these orders or endorsements or who has endorsed this instrument. And you'll always see with all the banks when they're going to the window, you'll see it here, you'll see it here, you'll see it here, and you'll see it here, and I believe here, and here. It's always the same terminology. They move the without recourse around a little bit. Doesn't matter. It's okay. It just has to be in there somewhere. Another one here. Here. It's always the same. They use a combination of a qualified and special endorsement. It's always the same type of endorsement. They always use that insurance policy, the qualified endorsement of without recourse, and they always state the payee of the person who's going to be receiving the Federal Reserve notes once this instrument comes back from the window. So in this one, the person who's going to be receiving those Federal Reserve notes when it comes back from the window is Bank of America, N.A. That's going to be the actual name on the check. Now, the thing is, you can do this yourself when you're getting a car or when you're getting a home or whatever. You can actually endorse the instrument in the exact same way. Every time they have you, quote unquote, sign any documentation, you're going to endorse that documentation with a qualified and special endorsement. Qualified is going to be without recourse. Special means it's going to say pay to the order of, and then you can have it pay to the order of the banking institution. You can have it pay to the order of yourself. You can put your own name there. And then below that, you're going to put by, and then this is the line where you actually sign your name. And then below that, you're going to put your name in normal letters so they can read it, and then comma, and then below that, you're going to put your title. Or if your name is short enough, you can put the title over to the right of your name. And this is the full endorsement process. And then you have something called an allonge. So what an allonge means, if you look up the definition, allonge is a slip of paper affixed to a negotiable instrument, such as a bill of exchange, for the purpose of receiving additional endorsements for which there might not be sufficient space on the bill itself. An endorsement written on the allonge is deemed to be written on the bill itself. So here's an allonge. An allonge is just an attached piece of paper that basically extends the overall paper available for the negotiable instrument, because the allonge for some reason cannot be stamped on the original negotiable instrument, or there's additional information that needs to be written in terms of the assignability, transferability, or redeemability of the instrument that needs to be written out in detail. So sometimes you'll see these where there's an allonge, and you can also make an allonge yourself where you say, oh, there isn't enough room here to endorse this document properly. Let's say, for example, you're told you need to you sign here, sir, for a car. You would say, oh, I'm very sorry, there isn't enough room here to properly endorse this instrument. I'd like to attach a sheet of paper and just write allonge at the top of it. They're not going to have any clue what you're talking about, but that's how you would handle that situation.
So, Brandon, if you wouldn't mind backing up just a bit before we go deeper into this and maybe define money for us.
Oh, yeah, sure. So
since we're always under the impression that we're exchanging money, what the heck is this stuff?
Yeah, so money is gold and silver coins. And when you look up the definition in Black's Law, it says does not embrace notes, bills of exchange, real estate, or other evidences of debt. It doesn't include securities, essentially, right? If you look up the definition of the term currency, or if you look up the definition of the term funds, those words do embrace notes, bills of exchange, and evidences of debt. So what we have is we have what's called negotiable instruments, which is essentially transferable, assignable, or redeemable securities. That is essentially what we're looking at, right? You'll see a lot of information all over the place. It's very confusing. It's actually very, very simple. There are only two types of negotiable instruments. There are a promissory note and a bill of exchange. A promissory note is defined as an unconditional promise to pay. A bill of exchange is defined as an unconditional order to pay. That's it. So in the United States of America, circa 2024, what most people consider to be the definition of money falsely would be promissory notes, because Federal Reserve notes are promissory notes. But little do people know that within the body of that same system, if that's true, which it is, bills are also money. So Federal Reserve notes are money, and then also all your bills are also money, because bills of exchange are negotiable instruments, unconditional order to pay. When you receive a bill and it says pay blah, blah, blah by this date, and there's no condition and there's no nothing, it's an unconditional order to pay. When you have an unconditional order to pay, that is a negotiable instrument, and you can endorse and perform on that negotiable instrument, sending it back, and it actually has to be applied as a payment. And if it's not, you can start putting people in prison.
So could you distinguish between pay and perform for us?
It means exactly the same thing. Payment means performance on a duty, obligation, or contract.
And explain the you mentioned 1924. I mean, I know there's 1913, the Federal Reserve Act, and then you have 1933. Then what was it, that they're in the Great Depression, where they took the gold out. But what did you say about 1924?
33, probably. Talking about 33.
Okay, yeah, well, okay, because you had said something about changing, making bills a bill of exchange. Can we unpack this a little bit more? I think people get really confused. How could a bill that's being sent to you as a supposed debtor actually be considered to be a form of payment?
Yeah, so there's only two types of negotiable instruments. You'll hear a lot of words. There's words like draft. There's words like check. There's all these words, but really, I try to keep it as simple as possible. It's already confusing enough. So really, it's just there's two terms. There's the unconditional promise to pay, and then there's the unconditional order to pay. The unconditional promise to pay is the promissory note, of which the Federal Reserve note is one type of promissory notes. There are infinite types of promissory notes. If you promise to pay anyone and they take that to the window, that's a Brandon Joe Williams note. So there's infinite notes. There's all types, and there's always new types being developed. So notes, the Federal Reserve note is just one out of billions of types of promissory notes. And all of those notes all have the same value in law. That's why they are exchangeable for Federal Reserve notes. Basically, what the Federal Reserve did was they brainwashed people and confused people into thinking that Federal Reserve notes are the only acceptable type of note. But in the law, that's not true. You can actually take the promissory note that you sign at the car dealership, and you can actually take that note, not even go to the Federal Reserve window, not transfer it for Federal Reserve notes at all, take it straight to a different car dealership and buy another car using that note as payment.
And I'm just trying to get an understanding of who defined this under what authority. Was this from the Emergency Banking Act, or was this previous?
No, this is super old. This is super, super old. This is like hundreds and hundreds of years old. And the best place to go to get a lot of the information on how this works is the Uniform Commercial Code, Article 3.
Okay. And so, yeah, we're going to start kind of tapping into what I like to call the Babylonian money magic. I think it's thousands of years old.
Yeah, I think it's old.
the Uniform Commercial Code, though, that wasn't really sanctified till I think what 1950s, right?
Yes, but it's a collection of a lot of really, really old information as to how all this works. And it sounds very silly and it sounds very chaotic and all this kind of a thing. But when you start to really read into how it works and you start to really understand how it works, it actually makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't go so far as to say that a lot of it is silly. There's a couple points that are a bit silly, but the thing is that I feel like as I move forward in this area and as I learn more and as I experience more, I'll probably realize more as to why those things are there. They seem silly to me now, but it's only a very, very small percentage of the information do I find to be like totally silly, honestly.
It seems like to me, it's everything's based on futures, right? These instruments are all based on projecting what the value of each human is coming into existence. And they're using that as the base value for these supposed instruments, these futures. And then the Emergency Banking Act kind of is weird too, because in a way, we're all sort of still in an emergency system right now.
Yes.
We've never gotten out of it.
Yeah, and the definition of credit is really fascinating. People don't understand what the definition of credit is at all. The definition of credit is essentially permission to defer performance to a later date. That is the legal definition of the term credit. And the Emergency Banking Act gave us all infinite credit, meaning infinite permission to defer payment or to defer performance to a later date. And that's essentially what birthed this entire system where we can endorse instruments. What we're doing when we endorse an instrument or perform on an instrument or pay an instrument, it's all the same terminology. Endorse, payment, and perform all mean the same thing. When you learn how to perform or pay or endorse, what you're doing is you are leaning on the permission you already have to defer payment to a later date.
Makes you
So-
there. I just want to say one thing real quick in there. It just makes you think, like, we look at the world right now and how insane it is. This idea of pushing everything to the next generation, is that problematic, right? Like, there is a base value system in the world. And I do agree, like, there's some genius behind this because I think they're super tapped into these occulted ideas of that we manifest what we want from our consciousness, and money should be able to direct that. But also, where's the responsibility in the end in terms of who's going to hold the buck in the end if we just keep pushing it down the line, if that makes sense? And it's just total mind. It just warps your mind when you really start to think about how this all works.
Well,
But go ahead, Bear.
the question I was going to present was, in the absence of money, there's really no ability. I don't know if discharge is right, but there's no real means to discharge a debt. So if we create a bill, for instance, and present that to someone, we have created a debt. And if nobody will accept that debt, don't I still own it? Aren't I on the hook for it? So it seems like a game of hot potato where we have to convince somebody else to assume that debt. And because again, there's no money to discharge in the first place. And I think the deeper answers to where we might be headed with this gets into some spiritual insights as far as what's really going on here. But your thoughts on any of that, Brandon?
Oh yeah, totally. If you look at UCC, I'm thinking, let me just give me one
Bear,
second.
pull out your
here.
UCC book. Bear's got it heavily tabbed.
UCC, we're gonna look
Well, if
up.
I can-
We're gonna look up the term value. So if I do another screen share, right? So I'm actually in the middle of doing a journey into UCC3 video series. We've only done the first two parts. I was hoping to do the third part today, which is going to be great because we're actually going to be going through the 3-3XX. So we're going to be going through this in part 3 of the series that I'm in. So value and consideration is what we're talking about here, right? And basically what the banks and what the institutions have done is they have flipped our minds to your point, Mike. They have flipped our minds to no longer value gold and silver coins, which is real money, as value and consideration. Now what we consider value and consideration is one specific type of promissory note called a Federal Reserve note. Now, because we feel as though this specific type of promissory note called a Federal Reserve note is value and consideration, that is the basis of essentially everything, right? So an instrument is issued or transferred for value if, and it's basically saying, all the different things that have to be in place for the instrument to be transferred at face value, not partially or something like that, right? And then consideration means any consideration sufficient to support a simple contract, right? And then it goes on to talk more about that, right? But without getting into all that, it gets a little bit crazy. But basically, because we value these things called Federal Reserve notes, that becomes the basis of all consideration. So basically, what happened is, if all of a sudden tomorrow everyone decided that Federal Reserve notes were no longer valuable or of consideration, and a lot of people walk around and they say, oh yeah, totally, like it's just fiat money and this and that, but I'm talking like really emotionally, spiritually realize what these things are and how they work and really stop having any interest in exchanging them. Well, what happened is every single contract in the world pretty much would essentially break down, explode, and fall apart. I would say it'd be more, I said the word explode, I'd say more like fall apart, because it's not going to be violent. It's going to be a very calm, very uneventful, just all the glue is gone, and then the parts, it's like a bunch of little pieces of wood that are put together like a little RC car or something like that. It's all glued together, and the glue just vanishes and all the parts just fall, right? Because the thing is that you have to have value or consideration is the glue that holds together all contracts. And the only reason why Federal Reserve notes, which are not really valuable intrinsically in themselves, but people consider them consideration, and that's why the word is consideration. Do you consider it to be valuable? If you do, that is the term, that is the definition of the term consideration, that of which the individual believes to be of value.
So bottom line, it's all based on us as the currency, our energy, which takes us right down to bottom line spirit. And if we withdraw our life force, our energy, no longer have any faith in this particular system, then they will just die on the vine, but we'd be fine because we're the source anyway. What Mike was referring to, he wanted me to show you this is my 2009 edition.
Nice.
And as you can see, I've read it a few times here. I have every page tabbed and underlined and a lot of it memorized. So I went through that ordeal, and I just as soon forget it all now. But at one time I felt that I needed to know it. Yeah, it wasn't fun, but yeah, been there. So yeah, House Joint Resolution 192 back, I think, in June of 35 was basically an exchange when the gold was taken from us to compensate us dollar for dollar. And at that point, the new exchange mechanism was the full faith and credit of the American people, which gets us back to the fact that, hey, it's us all along that's running the show, and somebody cleverly set themselves up as a middleman, and it's up to us to retrieve our spirit, so to speak.
Yeah, the whole system is very, very simple, in my opinion, just because I've been looking at it for so long and I continue to do so every day. The system was set up in a way where we we fund our own loans, and then we have to repay our loans, and then we have to repay our loans over a long, long, long period of time. And if you ever fail to perform on that loan at any point in time, then they take back not only the original asset, but a lot of times the bank will try to collateralize everything they possibly can. So let's say, for example, you're getting a business loan. They're going to collateralize your house or cars, your jewelry, your wife's expensive shoes. If they're really crazy expensive shoes, they'll try to put everything they possibly can on that document as what's called a collateral security, right? Now, what people don't realize is this is all an illusion, because the original promissory note that was originally endorsed with a blank endorsement was all the collateral they ever needed. And actually, when they go to the Federal Reserve discount window, that original promissory note is literally called a collateral security. So the thing is that you don't need to, let's say you want to buy a house. You don't need that house to be collateral on that loan at all. Now, it gets even more exciting, because if you endorse the original promissory note without recourse means I'm never going to perform on this, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And all you have to do is just get that document delivered, because the definition of accepted is delivered. So once they accept delivery, so you're sitting there and you're signing them, you're endorsing the mortgage documents. If you write without recourse, and you don't even state the payee at all, you just write without recourse, nothing else, and just sign it. You don't do anything else. Once you slide, so now you have a valuable promissory note. You have a valuable instrument. Now what you're going to do is you are the holder. You're in physical possession of the note in that moment. You're across the table from the guys. They slid it across to you to make you the holder, which is a technical term. You picked it up. You endorsed it with a qualified endorsement. Now what are you going to do? You're going to tender, which means to offer unconditionally. You're going to tender that instrument back to the person across the table from you. And now once they take it from your hand, it is now delivered. It is now accepted. It is now a legally binding contract as per UCC 3-603 subsection B. If they do anything at all after that, they're totally fucked. If they try to repo the car, if they try to do absolutely anything at all, it's straight to litigation for breach of contract. There's nothing they can do. Once they accept delivery, it's all over. I love the system. I got to tell you, I got no complaints.
How does this relate in terms of jurisdiction? To the Cesti K trust that was, from the 14th Amendment, and this idea that we're all citizens. Is this all for citizens in terms of the beneficiary or the co-beneficiary, the co-trustee of that trust that was set up in the 14th Amendment?
I don't think this specific activity and this specific thing that we're talking about involving endorsements and negotiability, I don't think it has anything to do with any of that, to be honest with you.
Interesting, because I've been trying to figure that out. And are you playing within the jurisdiction as the essentially as the beneficiary when doing that? And if so, does that lead to potential pitfalls when you're in court?
Well, you've given this corporation called United States, you've given them your full faith and credit, just like Bear said, right? If you've given them your full faith and credit, then as per the definition of a contract, they've been given value or consideration. Their exchange to you for giving them the value and consideration of the full faith and credit of yourself is permission to defer payment to a later date to an infinite capacity. And that's why if you look in 18 USC 8, which is a really, really important on all this, this also clears things up in a lot of really good ways. I'll do another screen share here. 18 USC 8 is called obligation or other security of the United States defined. And it says the term obligation or other security of the United States includes all bonds, certificates of indebtedness, national bank currency, Federal Reserve notes, Federal Reserve bank notes, coupons, United States notes, Treasury notes, gold certificates, silver certificates, fractional notes, certificates for deposit, bills, checks, drafts, everything,
Everything but money.
everything except gold and silver coins. But look, they have gold certificate and silver certificate. The word certificate means a representation of something else. So like this phone, right? If I had a certificate of phone, it would be a piece of paper that represents this phone in some legal capacity.
Yeah, it's a derivative.
It's a derivative, right?
Everything's a derivative now.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, I could take a silver certificate to the bank and get a nice new shiny silver dollar. And
Yes.
even though the certificate isn't the real thing, at least it can be redeemed, right? So does that have
So
any
a
more
silver
value?
certificate directly represents a silver coin, okay? Not just silver. It's a silver coin. And the reason why is because Article 1, Section 10 defined money as gold and silver coins. So a silver certificate, if you wanted to be a purist, it's actually a silver coin certificate. A gold certificate is actually a gold coin certificate. That's what it actually is. So it's a direct representation of the actual definition of the word money, which means gold or silver coins. It's got to be a coin. So the thing is that a gold certificate is a one-step derivative. A Federal Reserve note is a God knows what fucking we've lost ourselves completely derivative. That's the difference, right? But the cool thing about the system that we're in now, and the thing that I don't think people really understand, and there's a lot of cool stuff. So what's happening is that the banks are essentially trying to collateralize everything. So they collateralize your whole life when they give you a loan, and then it's a 30-year loan, and then they just wait for you to fall down. Something's going to happen. Year 10, year 20, year 15, year 25, whatever it is. Once you fall down, they take everything, right?
And not to mention the insurance companies too.
Yes. Now, the thing is that people are scared about this. They're scared about the inflation. They're scared about the collateralization. They're scared about all this interest that these banks have and everything. They basically own everything now. It's actually not really an issue at all. The issue is not any of that. That can all be addressed and handled in like 5 seconds. The issue is that people don't understand how to perform or pay. That's the number one issue. And the number two thing, that there's two different technologies that can be applied here that can fight this very, very, very effectively. Technology number one is the technology of endorsing negotiable instruments. Now, the problem with that technology is that no one is going to follow any of the endorsements or do anything you ask them to do. You have to litigate. You have to break in all their windows, all their doors, and you have to basically bash, several doors in and burn the whole building to the ground to get them to actually follow what the law says on how to actually properly perform on a negotiable instrument. I think that'll change as more and more people move forward on this. I'm involved in litigation. I'm willing to go all the way if I have to beat these guys. We're looking at the criminal side. We're learning how to write proposed indictments. We're going to start creating relationships with the DA's office, with the office of the comptroller. We're going to figure out as every single angle of pressure that we can put on these people, these defendants that we are suing. We are currently trying to figure out how we can apply the maximum amount of pressure. We want to apply so much pressure they eventually break. And when they break, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be issuing us black cards. But they're going to be issuing us black cards not through the U.S. Treasury. It's going to be through like American Express or something like that, right? So that's basically the whole idea of this, right? So when you can perform using endorsements, then none of this matters anymore, because you can get houses and cars and all this stuff that you want for free. You never have to pay for it. You never have to do anything. In fact, because the value of the instrument is the maturity value of the instrument. So let's say you have a house and it's a $1 million house, and over 30 years at 4.5% interest or whatever, let's just keep it simple. It's going to be 1.5 million. All the way at the very, very end, how much have you paid on the whole note? 1.5 million. When they go to the window, the Federal Reserve discount window, the value of that instrument is the 1.5 million. Then they get the 1.5 million. There's a discount. That's why it's called the Federal Reserve discount window. Discount means there's going to be some fees and stuff. They're going to be removed off of that 1.5 million when they get returned, right? So let's say they get 1.4 million back from the Federal Reserve discount window. Now what they do is they take the 1 million and they give it to the seller of the home, and that's how they quote fund your loan. That's the discharge when they give the seller of the home that you're trying to buy from. That's when they issue that payment through the escrow, and then they pocket the additional 400,000, and then now you're still paying on the loan as though no money has ever been paid. And that's because you failed to claim the value of the original negotiable instrument by signing it with by stating the payee in the endorsement, right? So if you state the payee, or if you put without recourse on the endorsement, you never have to perform. So the entire loan is instantaneously discharged. If you put without recourse, you never have to perform, and the thing just zeroes out and goes away. The problem with that is, though, do you really want to pay the bank that extra $400,000 for doing almost nothing? If you state the payee on the original instrument, now what happens is they can go to the window and they get the 1.4 million. The only place that 1.4 million can go is back to you. Now, once you get the 1.4 million back, then you give the seller of the house the 1 million. You give the bank an exchange fee. They basically did a currency exchange for you, just like what you would do in Europe if you were going from one country to the next and you went to a currency exchange. That's basically what they did. They exchanged the currency called Brandon Joe William note for the currency called Federal Reserve note. And there has to be some sort of value or consideration there in order to be a contract. So you would need to pay them some sort of swap fee, just like you would in Europe for a currency swap. So when everything's said and done, you got paid $350,000 for buying a $1 million home.
And
So
that just rocks
everything you're
people's minds.
describing, everything you're describing was really laid out again in House Joint Resolution 192, because that was their get out of jail free card. Because when they took us off of real money, they had to, as they said in their own words, compensate us dollar for dollar. Otherwise, they would be held accountable for trafficking in slavery.
Yes.
By forcing us to be dependent on a species of private promissory notes. So from that moment, if you really study that resolution, we were put in a prepaid status, which means all we have to do is exactly what you're describing, know how to endorse things and not take on any liability. The problem is since that was passed, in the meantime, they put a whole bunch of people out there on the streets with guns. So that's the situation we find ourselves in now. Now, how many people like yourself, which I believe, you're a rare commodity as far as really willing to put in the study and then also stick your own neck on the line, to do everything you're saying. How many of us does it take to really spearhead this through and, bring this system back to accountability? Or is it possible at this point when they're trying to bring in the new digital slave system?
Well, the second earlier in the podcast, I was talking about there's a second technology that we can really use. I can go ahead and mention that right now. The second technology is called adverse possession. Adverse possession is it's sort of like when you hear all this stuff about like possession is 9/10 of the law. That's true. It's not true when you have something that's registered. You start getting into like registered. Now you're starting to turn it into a security, and now there's a security interest. But people don't realize that if there's an abandoned property and there's nobody living in the property at all, and it's kind of becoming disheveled, you can literally just move into it. And after so many years, you can actually file legal documentation and you can actually legally possess the house. It's called adverse possession. The guy who I like that really talks a lot about this, his name is Moorish Lighthouse Official, Moorish Lighthouse _official on Instagram. His name is Jaleel. Great resource for this kind of information. So they're trying to push everybody out of their homes. It's sort of like, who was it? I think it was George Washington or whatever, who said that if the bankers are in control, every American will wake up, homeless on the street or whatever. I forget the exact quote. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about this system that we're living in where everything is collateralized and then people don't perform and then they're pushed out of the house through an eviction. Once they get the eviction through the court, which can happen very rapidly, that's when they can get the sheriff, and then the sheriff goes, and then that's how the eviction process takes place. When you know how to perform on the negotiable instrument, the eviction can never make it to the courts. So the thing is that when you perform on the negotiable instrument and then you let the court know that you have performed on the negotiable instrument, the eviction can't get through the courts. And a lot of times it can take years to even get that stuff to roll through anyways, especially when you have a good defense. Now, there's so many things to say on this. First and foremost, I know we were talking about it a little bit earlier, but one of the things that I teach that I think is very different, and I think it's one of the most important things there is in terms of fixing everything that's going on in the country, is everyone in the legal space is talking about defense and they're talking about dismissals, meaning I'm getting sued. How do I get the case dismissed? This is the worst possible mentality that you could ever have, ever. It is literally a virus. It is worse than COVID. It is the real COVID. The real COVID is this mentality of, oh no, I'm being sued. How do I dismiss the case? You want to sue if you so much as even think, if you so much as even get a whiff of an idea that someone might sue you, you want to sue them first aggressively. You want to smash in all their windows, bash in all their doors, and terrify the piss out of them as rapidly and as aggressively as possible. If you are sued, you want to do what's called a counterclaim, which means you are countersuing them inside of the lawsuit they sued you. Now, the cool thing about a counterclaim is you don't have to pay for it. So the thing is that to me, it doesn't mean shit. It's $405 to file a federal case. But the thing is that if someone sues you, if a bank sues you, you just got a free lawsuit. That's the way I look at it. That's the way everyone should look at it. Every time a bank sues you, every time you get sued for an eviction notice, every single time you get sued, it's your lucky day. Because the thing is that you just got handed a free lawsuit because you can counterclaim for free within that lawsuit. The plaintiff has to pay for it. So every single time you're sued, the first most important thing you want to figure out is, how do I get on the offensive? That is the number one. Dismissal is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. You do not want the case dismissed. That's the last thing on the planet that you want to happen. I'd be pissed if they dismissed my case. If you sue me,
the moving party always has the power.
If you sue me, I'm going to latch onto you like you've never seen in your whole life. And you're going to be begging me in 6 months to dismiss the case. And I'm going to be laughing in your face because this case isn't going anywhere. You started it. I'm going to finish it. Okay. That's the way it's got to be done. Because the thing is that when you realize how to endorse and perform on a negotiable instrument, you already paid all this stuff. It's all paid. Everything is paid. When you issued the original instrument with a blank endorsement payable to the bearer, they took it, they received value and consideration. End of story. And people say, oh, well, what about a lease or what about a rental agreement? The rental agreement is a promissory note. You sign it with a blank endorsement. It's the same thing. It's all paid. Everything is paid. So when they sue you for an eviction notice for, quote, not paying rent, you turn around and you counterclaim and you say, no, I did. The original promissory note, the rental agreement, is a collateral security exchangeable at the Federal Reserve. Now, Federal Reserve notes. Just because you don't know how to do that doesn't mean it's my problem. You don't know how the law works. I do. So the thing is that because they didn't go to the window and exchange it, that's not your problem in law. You issued them the instrument. What are you supposed to do? Hold their hand and walk, and go to the ice cream truck with the landlord? No. That's your job. Your job is to go to the ice cream truck and to swap that instrument for ice cream. It's not my problem. It's not my job. If you never do it or you never want to do it, it doesn't change the fact that you have received a humongous payment. The entire year of rent was already prepaid. The security deposit for a rental agreement is the rental agreement.
So yeah, we're all the creditors in essence.
So
So
you can sue, you counterclaim everything.
And you don't hire
is
a bar. You don't hire a bar.
Oh God,
attorney.
no. God, no. If you want to hire a bar card, you might as well just go sip on arsenic. It's the same thing.
Because there's this whole the idea. I think why a lot of these huge corporations sue is it's a war of attrition, right? They're gonna basically take you out with legal fees before you even get to court.
Yes. But the thing is that you never so a bar card, we call them bar cards. That's our pet name. Okay. So the term bar card, the reason why we say that word bar card is because there's two types of an attorney. Okay. There's an attorney at law and there's an attorney in fact. Okay. An attorney at law basically is an officer of the court, works for the court, has to have a bar card. Okay. So if you look up the definition of the word client from a body of law called corpus juris secundum, it says someone who applies to a lawyer, and then it says a client is a ward of the court. Then you look up the definition of the term ward of court. The definition of ward of court is infant or person of unsound mind. So the way it works is, as far as I'm concerned, I've never seen this in writing, but this is my own theory. The definition of the word responsibility means the ability to respond. Okay? That's my definition for the word responsibility. When you take on a bar card, you become a ward of the court because you do not have the ability to respond. The legal definition for somebody who does not have the ability to respond is a retard. It's the legal term, retard, right? So if you can't respond to things, like the whole idea is you can't really live life. You can't respond to a phone call. You can't respond to a bill. You can't respond to mail. You can't really like live a normal life, normal day-to-day activities in this world, right? So when you take on a bar card, in that same breath, you are saying, I am an infant or person of unsound mind. I am a ward of the court. A ward of the court is essentially property of the court, and an officer of the court is administering the court's property.
So you go to present your own property.
So you're presenting your own property. You are not being represented by an officer of the court and making yourself into an infant or person of unsound mind and thus property of the court. Yes. So this whole Trump thing in New York, I don't really follow it much, but he obviously doesn't really know what's going on because he took on a bar card. I think he's spent like $50 million in legal fees so far. So why would you want to be a client for an officer of the court, and why would you want to become an infant or person of unsound mind? And why do you think you're going to win in court if you become property of the court? It doesn't make any sense. It's insane. It's never going to happen. So when you realize that, you realize that there's two other options. Option number one is you're going to become what's called pro se. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's sui juris. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Pro se or sui juris, it makes no difference. People who say sui juris are people who are of the defense mentality. When you start going on the offense, you're going to be using the term pro se a lot more often. Okay. So you can go pro se. That's the best choice by far. Is the best choice. Okay, you are presenting yourself. You're actually presenting on behalf of the all caps name. So you're presenting as the agent on behalf of the principal, which is the all caps name, but you're presenting in your own name, which is the idea behind pro se or sui juris. So they say, are you representing yourself? You say, no, I'm presenting myself, but on behalf of my trade name. Something like that would be a very, very simple way that you would describe that, right? Now, there's a third option, and it's the option that we offer at Williams and Williams Law Group. The third option is that you can take on what's called an attorney in fact. Now, you're still going to be pro se if you take on an attorney in fact, basically. That's kind of how it works. But an attorney in fact is basically a contract-based attorney that is not an officer of the court. So you're basically just hiring a consultant, essentially, at that point. Now, the way that you create an attorney in fact relationship is through a power of attorney. So let's say, for example, grandma's getting old and you want to help grandma with the stuff that she's doing, and you want to help grandma with her estate, and you want to help grandma with her bills and all her stuff because she's getting a little too old. She's not able to really handle it so well anymore. You would get a power of attorney between you and grandma. And then after that point, whenever you're on the phone with the bank, whenever you're on the phone with this, whenever you would say, I am the attorney in fact for grandma. This is like a very normal thing. You can find this information on the freaking Bar Association website. You can find this information in the Power of Attorney Act at the state or federal level. This is very common information. The power of attorney is used all the time. It's used constantly all the time. People have never really noticed that it can be used for legal situations as well. So the thing is that when you have a power of attorney, you can retain all of your rights inside of the power of attorney contract. So the power of attorney contract can be written however you want. And the way that we write them is that all of your rights are retained. The only rights that we strip from you as part of our power of attorney is the right to grant jurisdiction and the right to endorse an instrument without stating the payee, meaning a blank endorsement. Those are the only two rights that we have you waive, and we have you waive those rights for your own protection. Every other right on the entire sun, moon, and stars, everything statutory, everything in the Constitution, everything in the Bill of Rights is all retained by our clients. And that's basically how we do it.
So maybe if we could elaborate a bit more on how we could apply this in the case of we were accused of a victimless crime. By the way, the thing with Trump, that's a good example. You know, a lot of people say, well, how can somebody of that stature not understand what's going on? I believe he knows exactly everything you're talking about. I don't know how he possibly couldn't. However, he is still part of the corporate structure, even though there is infighting amongst them. If he were not to represent himself through an attorney, it would just expose too much. And he is part of that system as well. So it's still part of the grand theater. But for the rest of us, let's just say we get a traffic ticket or some such thing. We're still doing commerce. Is that correct?
So cars and stuff are pretty complicated. But I mean, it's you guys are familiar with a lot of the information on this show, so it's not going to be too much to get into. So you have a certificate of title. Okay. So the word certificate, like we said earlier, it has two definitions. One of the definitions is it represents something else, right? And another definition of certificate is, proof that some event took place or something happened, like a certificate of marriage. Okay. So a certificate of title is an abstract of the title, right? Because you have the word title and you have the word certificate of. So that means abstract of title. So you ask yourself, okay, so this is not the title. So what is the title then? If it's certificate of what? The answer to that question is the original MSO or MCO, which is called the Manufacturer Statement of Origin or Manufacturer's certificate of origin. Okay. It's the original document that was issued by the manufacturer when the vehicle was first produced. If you go online and you do research, when you're sitting at the car dealership and they say, "Would you like us to handle license and registration for you, Mr. Williams, for $220?" and you say yes, what happens is, and they tell you this literally right on the California DMV website, the original title, which is the MSO MCO, is sent to the Department of Motor Vehicles in the parcel with the registration and everything else. They say right on there that original MCO or MSO has to be sent in so they can issue a certificate of title. They call the certificate of title a state or jurisdiction title. That's the exact terminology that they use. State or jurisdiction title, right? They don't explain why or what that means or anything. So what happens is that what's happening is that you are giving them the actual title, and then what happens is they are giving you an abstract of that title. And if you look on there, you are listed as the registered owner. If you look up the definition of the term registered owner in Black's Law Dictionary, it's someone who has been named who has a security interest in an asset and they can get dividends from that asset. So what's happening is you're donating your car to the state in order to operate within their commercial framework, but you're also giving them like senior ownership over the vehicle, and all you have now is just you're the beneficial owner or the registered owner of the vehicle. So what's happening is that police officers are essentially a private security, not the sheriff's office. So you got to think there's two different things here. There's the sheriff's office and there's the police. I'm not talking about the sheriffs right now. Totally separate subject. Just the police. The police is a private security force that works on behalf of the private corporation or business listed on Dun & Bradstreet as a business called State of California. What they're doing is they're pulling you over and they're policing their own property. You don't own that car. You're the registered owner. You really don't own it at all. You're allowed to use it. That's it. You have usage rights. But in terms of the overall car and the legal ownership of the car, you don't have that. No one has that on their vehicles or their homes. Okay. So what's happening is that you have donated this car to the state. Now, once you donated your car to the state has this rule book called the California Vehicle Code. So what's happening is that the police are pulling over their own property or property of which they are paid to police. So you could say it's not really their property specifically, but it's their client's property called State of California. And they are actually writing up a complaint, which is actually a micro lawsuit for breach of contract. You have breached the contract called the California Vehicle Code Penal Code subsection 381.322. So what's happening is you are looking at a breach of contract lawsuit. Now, the way that the performance on that lawsuit is they tell you that by signing this document, which is not signature, it's actually an endorsement. By signing this document, you are not admitting guilt. You are simply just agreeing to show up in a courtroom at a certain date and time. That's called a performance bond or a performance contract. And that ticket is a security. It's an option security because they allow you to also discharge by sending in these things called Federal Reserve notes. So it's an option security. You can either perform by showing up in the court at this time and date, or you can perform, which means payment. They mean the same thing, by sending in some negotiable instruments, some securities. Okay. So the thing is, though, is that when you sign that ticket, you are endorsing that ticket. So again, if you endorse that ticket without recourse means you can never sue me and I'm never going to perform. If you sign without recourse, you don't have to pay and you don't have to show up in court. And that's basically the gist of that breakdown of how that works.
Many years ago, I purchased a new truck, and this was in old school Hawaiian culture. And so we knew everybody on the island, including the police. So they left us alone. I used to work out with them in the same dojo and everything. But when I purchased the truck, I asked for the owner of the franchise, the car dealership, and paid cash. Well, whatever we call cash, and did a bank transfer and requested the manufacturer statement of origin, and I got it.
Nice.
So for a good number of years, I drove without any of the stuff you're describing. But just to reinforce what you're telling us here, it is true. If you can get that statement of origin, you're free and clear. It's kind of like reverting back to the original land patent, a loyal title on your property. So you're no longer real estate. Now, since then, I moved back to the mainland in about 2000 or 99. And tried to do it again, went to several car dealerships, and they just said, no, get out of here. We can't do it. But I hit some little sweet spot way back in the day, in a local culture where, I was able to pull it off. So I don't know if there's anybody out there that would still give you that. Probably not. But I can say firsthand, everything you're saying is absolutely true. If you can get that original ownership and not have an in-between title, you're in good shape.
Yeah, I went to California Superbike School to do the various levels of motorcycle race training. And after I finished level 3, I promised myself I was going to get a new motorcycle because I hadn't been riding for many years because of an accident. And so I put on my California Superbike School jersey and I started going to some of the local BMW motorcycle spots. And I called Long Beach first. That's the main one that supports a lot of the bikes to the California Superbike School. And I told them that I wanted the MCO or MSO, otherwise I wasn't even going to come down there. And they never really called me back. So then I decided I was going to take a little bit of a different approach. So I put on my jersey from the California Superbike School and I went to the Burbank location, Burbank BMW Motorcycles. And I was just walking around. I was just looking at the bikes and stuff. And they go, oh, man, California Superbike School. I was like, yeah, I just finished level 3. I promised myself I'd get a new bike and blah, blah, blah. So I start to get into a lot of rapport with these guys. And I get into a lot of rapport with the general manager. And they weren't very busy, which was very, very nice. And we start talking and I start talking about some things. Then they start talking about some things. And I say, oh, I'm a lawyer. I said, are you having some troubles? And they start telling me about this guy who had come in and he wanted this bike and he put like a very small down payment and it was only good up for like 14 days. And it was like after the 14 days and he was like threatening to sue and all this kind of, I said, that's all ridiculous. Just keep all the evidence of that collected together and just make sure you have all the texts and everything all put in like a Dropbox folder or whatnot. And if he comes after you, that's not going to be a very difficult situation to address. And I didn't really drop the MSO MCO conversation until we were pretty far into the whole thing. And I was very interested in buying the motorcycle. And then I kind of dropped it in a very kind of light manner. And I spoke with the general manager personally, right? And he told me, he's like, we have all the MSO MCOs upstairs for a lot of the bikes that are out there right now, even, which I thought was weird. So, basically what happened is that he ended up issuing me the MCO MSO, but then he made me sign a statement of facts, which is basically just like an affidavit. And he made me sign a statement of facts stating that the vehicle was not registered. And then he made me tow the motorcycle off the lot. He would not let me drive it off the lot. He was a little bit weirded out about the whole process, but I was able to get through the process to the end, and I was able to actually acquire the MCO and the MSO, or the MSO for the vehicle. So for my motorcycle, I do have it, but for my car, I don't. So what I did was, I think it's either North Dakota or South Dakota, I forget which one, they actually do out-of-state trust registration. So for about 2 years, I had an out-of-state trust with South Dakota registration. And then I eventually decided that I was going to end that. So I just sent the certificate of title into the South Dakota DMV with just an affidavit with just instructions. And I just said, you can destroy this. I don't need this. I don't want this. I'm no longer the registered owner of this vehicle. This vehicle is going to be, full dominion of this vehicle is going to be by the trust. It's going to be private now. Please destroy the security. Please destroy the trade name, Brandon Joe Williams in all caps. Please destroy any information about me, et cetera, et cetera. And I just sent in a bunch of instructions, and I just had all of that stuff all removed and destroyed. And then now I'm going to be suing the DMV in California because I don't know how, but there was some document that the guy over at BMW Motorcycles had me fill out, and I sent it in, but it was like almost no information. It was like there was like a power of attorney section. I said, I'm not signing that. No fucking way. And then there was a few other things, and when they sent that in, they sent me a registration and a title. And I was like, oh no, 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 no. So I sent them back a communication, and I said it was an affidavit, and I said, I don't know why or how you guys are sending me an abstract of something that you don't have. This is literally fraud. This is securities fraud. This is like totally crazy what you're doing. This all needs to be destroyed all the way back to its inception. And then like 2 months later, they sent me this letter, and it said, and it started off and it said, the employees of the Department of Motor Vehicles disagrees with your letter. I was like, that's irrelevant. Like, what is your agreement in how this works, and you issuing a security and an abstract title based off of a title you never even got or had the right or even power of attorney to even put my name on this document, and my name is trademarked. So like I'm actually building a $500 million lawsuit, and we're going to just smash into the DMV. Now, at some point, what we're going to do is with a lot of these lawsuits, we're going to start going to the press. We're going to start getting the press involved. We're going to start doing a lot on the criminal side. So we're going to start writing indictments. We're going to start going to the press. I'm just barely getting rolling on this thing. We want to apply as much pressure from as many different angles as possible to get them to break in litigation.
Brilliant. So for people that want to know more about doing any of this, can you elaborate a little bit more on some of the services that you offer and how people could find you?
Yeah. So what I do is I'm an attorney. In fact, you would get, we would do a power of attorney with you, and we're just like your sidekicks, basically, me and Joey Kimbrough. And we just kick in doors and break through windows, and yeah, that's what we do. And it's the long haul. We're in it for the long haul, and there's a very large down payment up front that has to be paid. We can go after all of, like, let's say, for example, you put the down payment on a HELOC or something like that. We could sue the HELOC finance company as part of all this. So you don't even need to make a payment on whatever it is that you use to pay us. And we just go after everybody. We go after the mortgages. We go after loans. We go after unsecured, secured. The first thing we do is we go through a series of letters that removes all of the collateral off of the loan. So we actually novate the contract. A novation is a change in a contract, like when you're in Facebook and they say there's new terms and conditions, and by continuing to use the platform, you agree to the new terms and conditions. We do the same thing, but to them. And there's several things that we adjust. One of the first things that we adjust is that we remove all collateral security interest of everything except the original collateral security, which is the original promissory note. Then we give them 30 days to issue deeds, to issue clean titles. They never do it. So then we just move into litigation. It's very, very simple. We're the plaintiff. We're going after them. We've issued orders to remove collateral. It's all fraudulent. The fact that these items are all collateral, like the home is collateral on the mortgage, that's fraud. So we're suing for fraud, unjust enrichment, unlawful conversion, breach of contract, breach of fiduciary duties. They're saying in the lawsuits, we're learning as we go, they're saying like lenders don't have a fiduciary duty to borrowers. And we're like, they're not the lender. They never were. I mean, you can kind of say like on paper, because you did a blank endorsement and they took the instrument and swapped it and gave you back the money, and you never expressed any interest in that document, you can kind of say they're the lender. But when you do what's called an endorsement rescission, which is what we're doing, which is we're saying like, hey, that original blank endorsement was fraudulent. We were never told about that. So what we're doing is through fraud, and through a lot of the original documentation before we get into litigation, we're replacing that blank endorsement with a qualified special endorsement. So the payee is now me, and it's now without recourse. So we changed that through a novation before litigation. So then when we get into litigation, they aren't the lender anymore. So now the conversation has to be, now that we have to get into the conversation, and they're hiding behind this, oh no, we're the lender, we don't have a fiduciary. No, you're not. Not anymore, you're not. Not since I did a rescission on the endorsement. You're not anymore. You're not the lender. You are
So
a currency
Brandon,
exchange.
you're going in and you're just updating the contracts, because in
Yes.
equity you always have the ability to do that.
Exactly. Now they don't perform on the novation. They never do. They ignore you. So that's where litigation comes into play. So you novate the contract, you get ignored, and then you go to federal litigation. That's the mathematical equation.
My only question, once again, is jurisdiction. I brought this up before we started. Like, when we look at how these trusts were set up, and it makes sense that the state of whatever, the corporations feel empowered to be able to take your vehicle, the title, because you literally signed as the beneficiary of the trust, so you have no say. I'm wondering if they just use that to basically partition all of this into a certain jurisdiction where you have no say in the end, and this is all just playing in with their rules. If that makes sense.
No. When you send in an novation and you get rid of the certificate of title, and you send a letter to, let's say there's a lien holder. Let's say Capital One is the lien holder, right? First letter is going to go to Capital One, and you're going to say, hey, the original collateral security on this was the promissory note. This car is no longer collateral on the loan. That's it. That's a novation. Please issue me a new title, or please send information to the DMV letting them know that the lien holder on the vehicle of Capital One is going to be removed from the vehicle. So you're going to send them the novation, and then you're going to send the DMV all your paperwork and everything, have it all destroyed, and you're going to let them know that you also sent a letter to these guys over here, and you're letting them both know that there's a novation, and then they both are going to ignore you or think you're crazy or do something weird, and then you're going to sue them both. And then if they repo the car, now you have a fraud charge, now you have theft, now you can start getting into indictments, criminal indictments. So you're going to push it all the way. You're going to get a huge settlement for the fact that you were coerced into doing a blank endorsement. You're going to get you could sue the state of California for the coercion behind donating your vehicle so that to turn it into a motor vehicle to operate it in commerce. You can sue the DMV for conversion, unlawful conversion. You can drag all these parties in as defendants into one lawsuit. And the more crazy stuff they do, like if they repo your car, that's just going to be more fuel on the fire for your lawsuit.
So what do you think about holding some of these individual actors accountable in their personal capacity? Say a guy comes and tows your car away, or I have a personal story where a county recorder recorded a phony IRS lien and went after her in her personal capacity and got it withdrawn. Do you ever do anything like that? Because it seems to me that more of those people that realized they were in harm's way by enforcing this phony stuff might start thinking twice about it.
We're just now starting to get into one particular instance where we might go down a road like that, but typically we're just dealing with negotiable instruments and loans. That's pretty much everything I've been doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And no need for secured party creditor status corrections or anything like that.
I as far as I can tell, the whole secured party thing is from UCC 9. As far as I can tell, if you endorse the instrument and you endorse it and you state the payee and you become the payee, you are the secured party. To me, it's that simple. But I haven't gone down that road. The secured party is the one who put the funds in the pot.
Yep.
If you're the payee and you state the payee as yourself on the instrument, then you're the one putting the funds in the pot. You're the secured party, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I'm going to step away for one moment. I have to use the bathroom real quick, guys. Can you guys talk amongst yourself for a moment?
Yeah.
Thanks.
No,
Give me 1 second.
Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what I like about this is the simplicity of all, right, Bear? Once again, I'm just having a little bit of a tough time wrapping my head around how, with the way the trusts were set up, if you are deemed to be the beneficiary, then you are seen as a minor. Like you don't have the ability then to um, do a lot of what Brandon's saying that they're doing. That's just my question in terms of jurisdiction and what your status is. But it's interesting to see where this goes. Yeah, I mean, I know
Yeah,
you've.
I'm less and less concerned with status correction, and you know, I did the whole secured party thing long ago and all that kind of stuff. But it still boils down to every single negotiation, you have to handle it properly. I don't care what your status is. And at that moment, for that particular business transaction, you establish who you are, regardless of prior corrections or not.
Well,
Of
and
course,
Bear, I
in
think
our
it could be, sorry to interrupt, but it could be as simple as how you endorse. You endorse where you
yeah.
set that. And I know Brandon's talking about certain elements, but I've seen how other people have mentioned other ways to endorse as a secured party creditor, or you're saying you're the trustee or the beneficiary, or you're not,
Yeah.
whether it's all caps or not. So there's a lot of different conflicting information about how you endorse as well.
Yeah, and a lot of it will boil down to things we're involved with now with the law equity group that is going to get very deep into trust law and how to put your goodies out of harm's way in the first place. And I know Brandon talks a lot about that. So Brandon, we've can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I'm back. Thank you.
Okay, so we're just kind of chatting, and we really appreciate this talk, and it does get down to some fairly simple concepts, and I think unconvolutes a lot of the things that are going on out there with just complicated procedures and processes that maybe are unnecessary in the first place. So you know, we can wrap this up. We've been talking for a while, and but why don't we do this? If there's something that you feel it's important that we haven't touched on yet, let's go ahead and do that, and then you know, just kind of finalize that way.
Yeah, possession is really simple. Possession is just possession, and the cool thing about UCC3 and talking about negotiable instruments is they call the person who possesses the note the holder. It's very simple. The holder. It's the same idea in all possession. The holder of this thing, the holder of this phone, the holder of this cup, right? So when you hold it, you possess it, and that's the simplicity. What happens is when you start getting into registration and you start getting into documentation and you start getting into certificates of title and abstracts and all this stuff, that's where what's happening is that there's multiple parties. There's an interest in the asset. The asset is going into some sort of like a trust, and now there's functionalities of the trust. That's where all the complexities begin. So the easiest thing in the world is let's say you want to go get a house. You know, the term that you would say, you wouldn't say a allodial title, you would say a fee simple title. And the title company goes, oh, I don't know what that is. You say, great, find somebody who does. Oh, we can't. I don't pay you to can't. I pay you to can. So how about you go out and you figure it out? Because you type it into Google fee simple title and it pops up. There's information everywhere. I mean, even Google will tell you straight up exactly what it is, right on the first page, right at the top, as though you're looking up a cookie baking recipe. It's so easy to find. It's so simple. Now the thing is that people are going to say, "Oh, well, I can't get a fee simple title because I have a lien holder. I have a mortgage, right?" Okay. So what you're going to do is you just sue them all. You just novate the contract, and you say, you know, the original collateral security is all you need. And in fact, you guys actually owe me money, so you're suing them for money. So you're going to sue them for damages. You're going to sue them for fraud and coercion, and you're going to sue them for unlawful conversion, and you're going to sue them for unjust enrichment, and you're going to sue them for money had and received, and then you're also going to sue them for damages. You're going to sue them for damages for having the coercion. You're going to sue them for all of the additional interest that was generated on the negotiable instrument when it was swapped the Federal Reserve window. So that should all be returned to you. You're going to have every single payment you've ever made on the account using extraneous and irrelevant Federal Reserve notes returned to you. Plus, you're going to drag the county into it, and you're going to say the county has to release security interest on this property so I can have a fee simple title. And you're going to address all of that with two defendants in court. One defendant is going to be the mortgage company, and the other defendant is going to be the county. And I haven't done a county yet, but we're just onboarding a guy right now, and we're going to have 5 mortgages and a county. And it's going to be, it's going to be a block party. I am thrilled. So
Now, if there's no lender involved, and let's just say you're looking
yes,
at
yes,
title on your land, then it's just a matter of
fee simple. So you just tell the escrow company and the title company, if you think I'm going to sign off on any of this, you're sadly mistaken. You're going to get me a fee simple title. I don't want the county involved at all. I'm not interested in contracting with the county. If somehow this property ends up becoming anything but fee simple, or it's involved with the county at all, I'm coming for all of you in your personal capacity, and I will drag you through the court system like a freaking meat stick. Okay. No way. You're not going to release anything out of escrow until you can verify that it's a fee simple title. If it's a cash deal, that's how you do it.
So if you already have a property and there's no lender involved, but you have a warranty deed that you want to renegotiate?
Yeah. So in that case, it depends on how you want to go about it. I mean, I would do the same process. I would tell the county, hey, there's no longer consideration in this. If you guys want to come and power wash my driveway, paint the side of my house, mow my lawn, fix my fence, maybe redo my roof, then I'll be interested in continuing this contract, because that to me would be considered value and consideration. Anything else that you guys are doing or think you're doing is no longer considered valuable consideration. If you have no interest in painting the side of my house, re-roofing my house, power washing my driveway, I'll give you 30 days to release all security interest on this property. If you don't do it, I'm coming for you. Because the thing is that once you've announced what is the glue that holds together a contract, value or consideration? And you'll look in case law and you look at the definition of consideration. Consideration is defined as that of which you consider valuable. So if today I consider Federal Reserve notes valuable and then tomorrow I don't, all my contracts are changed now. It's an instantaneous novation, right? So if you tell the county, I don't consider any of this stuff consideration anymore, to be honest with you. Now, all of a sudden, if they continue to force that contract on you, now we have involuntary servitude, 13th Amendment, massive felony, 25 years in prison. So now you can start writing indictments. You can get the local DA involved. Now you have a criminal case. But it's not a criminal case until you clearly delineate what is and is not the contract or the value or the consideration. If you don't clearly novate the contract by paying it and not saying anything, the assumption is you are receiving benefit. You are receiving consideration. And that's where the paper terrorist sovereign citizen thing comes into play too, because some people send in 587,000 pages. It makes it very difficult for them to understand what you're trying to say. It's very simple. You can send them just one page. Dear County, these various services that you've been giving me over the years, I no longer find or consider to be valuable or of consideration. These are the following items that I would consider to be valuable or of consideration. 1, power wash driveway once a week. 2, paint side of house with red paint. 3, new roof. These are the specific roof tiles I would like to have. 4, solar system. This particular system is the one I'm looking at currently. 5, 6, 7, 8. Below that, it would say, if you do not have any interest in providing the above services, then I hereby give you 30 days to remove all security interest on the property and to please send me verification that this has been completed. Thank you very much, Brandon Joe Williams. Send it in. That's it. It's that simple.
And in the case of some of us that live off grid, extremely rural, we don't get any services in the first place, but you're still expected to perform with your property tax.
That's called well, it's not involuntary servitude, because by paying, you are essentially part of a subscription service. Every time you pay, you're basically saying, I am being benefited enough by this. Thank you very much. It's the actions that speak louder than the words, right? That's why you give them 30 days, and before they can even breathe, you've got them in federal court, and you're just beating the ever-loving F out of every inch of their body. So once you start the process, you send the letter, 30 days, and then you just start swinging. And you don't stop swinging until they acquiesce.
Brilliant.
You're going to get paid too in the process, because you got to think, if they think that they're going to force you into some kind of a forced labor or enticement into slavery or indentured servitude, that's all. Now you've got damages. Now you need to be compensated. There needs to be relief there, because you're now in a situation where now you really have been harmed in the letter of the law. You weren't harmed until you started doing this stuff. Once you said consideration, and once you say value, and once you say this, and once you say contract, and then after that they continue, that's when we start moving into needing relief and damages and all sorts of good stuff.
I think this is the meat of the whole thing, is the assets, basically seizure they've done to put these all into derivatives and futures and instruments. That's what's running it all. That is the land. That is the actual value. So the ironic thing is, as everyone starts to do this, it may take out the very system. But I think we all need a Brandon Joe Williams in every county as an attorney. In fact, that, because I don't want to do it. I mean, I know like there's elements of this I really want to start doing right now, but I don't have the time to be suing and doing all this stuff. Like, so that's why it's good to have people you can contract with that for a fee will handle that, right? That was the original point of an attorney, I assume.
Yeah, the problem is that, as an attorney, in fact, I assist you to present yourself. So yes, there's going to be a massive learning curve that you're going to avoid by taking on an attorney, in fact. But the thing is that you are ultimately still in the driver's seat. You still ultimately are going to be the one who's going to have to show up for any court hearings. But you'd be surprised how little, God, in all the cases we've spent, grand total of maybe 15 minutes in court on all cases combined. It's all just paperwork. It's all just paperwork into the docket, back and forth and submitting this, and then they submit this, and then you submit this, and then that's pretty much almost everything we've done on all the cases since the dawn of the first case. So the amount of time that you're actually going to spend not necessarily. It just depends on the situation.
What about certified mail cost?
No, we use process servers. We were doing the certified mail thing at first, and it's too much of a pain in the ass, so we use process servers now. So ABC Legal, something like that, it's like $80 to serve a summons. By the way, an important point actually I should make. You can actually file in propria pauperis, which means in the persona of a pauper. It's not the best thing in the world, but basically what you're doing is you're petitioning the court to defer payment of the court costs and the serving costs to a later date. So you can actually litigate with no money down. Just for a lot of the people who are saying, I don't have $500 to spend on a federal case and servicing fees. You can go it might have a different term in different jurisdictions, but it's called in persona pauperis, something like that. And it's basically you're petitioning the court to allow the court case to run on its merits, and then they'll take out the $500 at the end when you win out of the winnings of the suit. No money down. File your lawsuit today.
Well, in a civil society, in a civil society, we have courts for a reason.
Yes.
We should use them effectively. Wow. Bear, any other things before we wrap this up, man? This has been a great one. We knew it would be.
No, it's just very enjoyable. I could talk to you forever, Brandon. And, I think for most people going into this is more just anxiety than anything, just taking on the system as is perceived. But if we consider how much time we all spend funding all of our fees and taxes and permissions, in the long run, probably what you're talking about is going to take a lot less time and energy, but we just have to overcome some fear in the process.
Yeah, you were talking about spirituality earlier. This is a serious spiritual path. I mean, so I go on a lot of shows and I talk about, one of the things I talk about is male versus female, feminine energy versus masculine energy. I wrote a whole book called Love is a Battery on the subject. And one of the things that I find fascinating is women have a rite of passage. It's when they first have their period and that kind of thing, right? And it's like they're scared and they're excited and they run to mom. Men don't have that in the West. In the East, they have these things. They have Mecca and they have journeys and they have these things where there's a delineated time period and activities where a boy becomes a man. And they do it in Indian tribes a lot too. They'll send the boy out into the forest for 3 or 4 days, and he has to bring back some item that's like fairly difficult to find or whatever it is they have to do. And then after he comes back with that item 4 or 5 days later, they all come together. There's a big party. And now that boy has officially become a man. I feel like in the West, I feel like the two things that I feel are available for us as rites of passage are hand-to-hand combat, such as boxing, jujitsu, or some form of physical combat, or litigation. And I feel that litigation is an excellent option, and it's a rite of passage. And not to say that women can't do it, but I feel like it's something special for men. And the reason why I say that is because we are scared, and a lot of us are little bitches these days. And the thing is that litigation can clean a lot of that up. You are moving through fire. It's fire. You are moving through your own emotions. You're moving through your own insecurities through combat. And the thing is that I feel through litigation, at 37 or 38 years old, I feel like I'm a boy who's becoming a man at 38 years old. So I that's the way I look at it. I don't look at it as something optional. I look at it as, I don't have a federal income tax liability legally. I don't have a state income tax liability legally. I don't have a sales tax liability legally. I don't have a certificate of title legally. I don't pay for smog legally. If I had to do smog, my car probably wouldn't pass. It's 800 horsepower 2009 Shelby GT500. I don't need to smog my vehicle. So I can put all sorts of upgrades in it and make it 800 horsepower and have fun all day long. Nothing anybody can do about it. I legally don't pay registration fees. I legally can't get tickets. I legally can't really get accosted by much of anybody. And then what's cool about that too is if you ever have any issues, with anybody or anything, you can sue them, you can defend yourself, you can counterclaim. It as a man, it brings a tremendous amount of masculine energy and confidence into your life. And it is a truly one of the most, if not the most, one of the most spiritual things I've ever done. The amount of self-value, self-worth, understanding, and then not to mention the fact that you start to study this stuff, and this stuff is so old, hundreds or thousands of years old. There's so much wisdom in it. I know it all sounds crazy, but when you really, really start to get into something like UCC3 and you start to realize like, oh, Tinder and like acceptance and like, that's what I'm doing all the time in real life. And like, I'm offering something unconditionally. And then they go, thank you very much. And they accept delivery. And then now there's a contract. And like, what creates the contract? It's this idea of consideration or value. And like, oh, I want something valuable from you and I can provide it. And it's like this whole economic exchangeability. It's a philosophy study. It's spirituality. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than this. I mean, really, I mean, I'm a musician, I'm a writer, I'm an entertainer, I'm basically a comedian, I'm all these different things. So I'm very much an artist. And I have to say that the law is I would go so far as to say that the law may very well be more spiritual and artistic in a way than even art itself. That might be a little bit, because I feel like law is philosophy and I feel like philosophy is art. So that's why I say that. But it's really a beautiful thing, and I really intend on getting more people interested to see the beauty that I see in this thing.
I couldn't agree more with what you're saying. And masculinity, of course, is a representation of the solar energy. And gold itself is a condensation of that solar energy. So maybe there's a little bit more to the fact that they have removed that gold essence from our daily use. I think we can riff off that for a little while. All this stuff goes pretty deep, but this has been wonderful, absolutely brilliant. Thank you for
Thanks,
all
guys.
this you're doing. And Mike, what do you have to say there to finalize this?
I would just say go definitely sign up for his contract. Is it Contract Killer course, right, Brandon? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
It's like what, 45 days of repeated instruction you get every day, right? How many days is it?
It's 39 days, but
Okay.
that was a couple of years ago. A lot of the basic information is there, but if you're looking for more of the financial stuff, I'm on shows all the time, and then I have a YouTube channel with tons of information on it. So I got stuff all over the place. But the free course is a great place to start. At least sign up, because you're going to get one video per day for 39 days.
And how can people follow you on your current journey with the clients and stuff, or excuse me, not clients, but
No, we use the word client. We just
You do.
redefine it.
Okay.
So in the power of attorney, the word client is the very, very first definition in the definition section that's very clearly redefined. And it says right in there, this is not this is not involving an infant or person of unsound mind. But I would say get on my email list once a week. You can get on my email list by signing up for the free course. Once a week, I send out an update email with all the updates. It's usually pretty jam packed.
And are you playing a lot of pickleball these days?
Nope.
Okay.
My whole life is pickleball.
Stay in shape, brother. It's important. Your health, right?
Yeah.
Well, hey man, this has been great. Look forward to hopefully hanging in person again sometime. If you're ever up this way, stop on by.
Yeah.
And we'll get you to the next Music in Sky. I know a lot of people were asking. So
I'd love to go. I'd love to speak. I'd love to whatever. I'd love to do it. I think it'd be a great opportunity for me to hone my in-person speaking skills as well. So I'd be honored to be invited to the next one.
Fantastic. Well, guys, definitely go the show notes. We have all of his email, or excuse me, his websites that you can follow. And what I love about Brandon is he's really passionate about getting this information out, because he doesn't have a paywall for this information. Basically, everything's free. So that's really important. And some of it's a little crass. Some of it is a little in your face, but that's on purpose. And there's a whole methodology and point to that Brandon explained to me when we were in person. And for me, it was like a little jarring at first, because there's a certain sensibility with a lot of the law sites and I hate to say it, but the gurus out there, and you're definitely not a guru, because a guru requires a form of like subservience, and you're the exact opposite of that. So
My initial reaction to looking at your website and your material is that it was very refreshing. I enjoyed it.
I love hearing that. That's exactly it's refreshing for me to look at my material. I've been in marketing and PR and sales for 12 years. And like I said, if I had to be the law guy and stand there in a suit or something, I'd rather just not do it. It's just not going to happen. I can't look at another website that's just this it's so devoid of life, like everything else in our whole existence. It's this PC, I just couldn't do it. It's just awful. It's like actually, it's like emotionally and spiritually painful for me to even think about doing something like that at this point in my life.
Well,
You know, it's just
it's like seeing some of my punk rock heroes from my youth just cowtailing during the COVID nonsense,
oh
right?
my, exactly,
It's
exactly. It's like, bro, I trusted you, man. You know, it's like,
yeah, and you're definitely have a punk rock aesthetic about you in terms of how you're coming about this, and we appreciate it. So everyone, go follow Brandon, go to his websites in the show notes below. Remember to get outside, get your feet in the dirt, go plant something, start a garden, go for a hike, go hug a tree. It does help. And we're taking next week off. We'll be at Music and Sky. And the following week, we got Big Bear, the Bard King, Owen Benjamin coming back on, which will be a blast
Ooh.
follow-up show after Music and Sky. I can't wait to see everybody in person. We'll try to do a little streaming from there. Maybe when Bear and I are there, out to the community, and we'll have a ton of videos. We're recording everything, so it'll all be on musicandsky.com. Thanks so much, guys. Have a beautiful day, beautiful weekend, and we'll see you next time.